Capital Views is sponsored by Northrim Bank, Alaska Oil and Gas Association, ConocoPhillips, and Linden.
Hi, I'm Tim Bradner with Alaska Legislative Digest, and thank you for joining us with Capital Views, and thank you today to Representative David Nelson, uh, recently elected, or actually re-elected, to represent District 18 in Anchorage. So thanks for joining us, David.
Thank you so much, Tim, for having me here.
Yeah, I mentioned re-elected because you served a term in the House and took a term out, and now you're back. Uh, So, David, maybe you could just tell us a little bit about your background. I mean, where you grew up, your professional background, what your interests are, and then maybe we could talk a little bit about the district itself.
Yeah, perfect. So a quick rundown. I'm originally born down in Orlando, Florida, a little town north of it. I came up to Alaska at 2015 to go to UAA for the military. Graduated from UAA and actually commissioned through their Reserve Officer Training Corps program that they have at UAA. So I commissioned into the Alaska Army National Guard.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
worked while I was at university, worked for Senator Murkowski in our Anchorage office, and then also worked at the Missile Defense Agency over on J-Bear. Um, at that time, I got into politics and ended up running for state house and won my first term. So got in and served from 2021 to 2023, and then was out for 2 years, and now I'm back in. And all that time, I was also serving in the Alaska Army National Guard as a Seabird, which stands for Chemical, Biological, Radiological, and Nuclear. I was an officer attached with the 207th Aviation out of Fort Richardson.
What do you do as a seabird, Dave? What is that?
It's one of these jobs where it's a lot of decontamination. Really early on during COVID, I actually got activated to help with decontamination and mitigation efforts all across the state of Alaska to make sure COVID didn't spread more than it already did, or in case the National Guard had to get involved, it wasn't going to transfer between air crews or other individuals. It's one of these jobs that you don't necessarily want me to be working and doing my job because then everything else has gone really, really bad.
When you were at the university, was the military your degree program, or were there other parts of your academic work?
Yeah, so I actually was a degree in political science. I know I'm a couple credits short of possibly another degree, so I might go back to UA just to finish that one out. But my main focus was in poli sci. But it was a tough couple of years just because between working for Senator Murkowski and then my school work and then my ROTC work, it was pulling 16-hour days most of the time. So,
Yeah, I can I understand what that's like. Um, and when you're with Senator Bukowski, what sort of issues did you work on in her office?
yeah, so I initially started off during as a volunteer with her campaign, and then just started working my way, and then actually got picked up to be an intern in her Anchorage office. And by the time I left her office, I was a full-time staffer. So a lot of constituent services, actually working with her military and veteran liaison on case military casework that everyday soldiers affect out here in the state of Alaska.
David, we have a big veteran population here, and obviously a large military population. What sort of issues are veterans dealing with? I know there's ongoing health and the issues related, sometimes service related, and also military families. I mean, how are they doing?
Yeah, Alaska has always been a really welcoming place. You can talk to any active duty soldier or their family, and they really have seen regardless of where they're coming from, they're really seeing it's such opening and welcoming arms the state has to them. And that's why we see such a high per capita veteran population, is because of such a welcoming attitude. And there's still some concerns that they have. And so part of what I do, especially representing Joint Base Elmendorf Richardson, is I look and help with transitional programs, spousal employment, what veterans are coming to me and talking to me about some of their issues that they're having. And that's something that I see and that I tell soldiers about. So my first bill actually that I got passed during my first term was passing a spousal employment act, which helped get spouses and children of Gold Star military soldiers a little help with getting employed by the state of Alaska.
I remember that bill. That was a good piece of legislation. Do you follow what is the general situation now with spousal employment? I know this is very important to soldiers and airmen because the the military is a place where two families usually need to work. But are most spouses finding employment, finding gainful employment, or do we need to do work on, for example, our professional licensing up here?
Yeah, and that's a great point, and that's what I've been working at. Is professional licensing is still a big issue that faces spouses that come up here with their significant others. If it takes 2 years for someone to get their new license up in the state of Alaska, but they're only attached or they're only stationed up here with their spouse for 3 years. It's a little difficulty to getting them straight into the workforce. So what I've been working with, and as well as Senator Kawasaki and other legislators, is really emphasizing the ease of use for temporary licensures or license reciprocity for military spouses or their families.
Do we have adequate reciprocity? I mean, is
We,
the problem getting better?
it's definitely getting better. There's been a lot of attention paid to it by both bodies and the governor. There's still some areas we need to improve on. So nurses is one of the biggest areas of employment by military spouses. And so we're working on nursing licensure. Working on a couple different things, but we've had some great improvement in other areas, and the fight never stops.
Yeah, what's important. What about the base student? I mean, the the basic base allocation, the cost of living allowance. Is that adequate, or do we need to make some improvements there? I know that's a federal question, but
Well, and that was actually a big issue previously, the past couple of years while I was out, was that there was a big push from DoD about adjusting that or removing it just for Alaska. And it's one of these things that if you're not up here and seeing, some of the duty stations that people have out here in the state, you don't realize the high cost of living that it takes to be up here in Alaska. And so that's part of what my conversations have been with our federal delegation and with the current administration.
well, that's why the helping spouses get jobs is very important because it's very important to have a two income household for military families. I would think.
Oh, very much so. Yeah. And that at the end of the day, we want to make sure that people are productive, and, if they take the time out of their life, and join up on the military, we want to make sure that they're not going to be hurt by coming up here. They're actually going to be loving the state of Alaska and really wanting to come back or stay up here.
Well, we want to make sure they have good experience because when they retire, we want to make sure they stay here.
Oh, 100%. And that's one of the big things that I take personal accountability for, is working with transitional programs. Both what the DoD offers, and then outside of that is something that I really want to pay attention to, and I hope the state pays more attention to, because you really want to have someone with good experience and good knowledge transition into a job up here in the state of Alaska, and not just losing them to go back home. Alaska's an amazing place, and you talk to any soldier, they love the hunting and fishing out here.
Right. Thank you very much for joining us, Representative Nelson, and we can continue the conversation in the future sometime soon.
Perfect. I appreciate it, and thank you so much for having me.
Yep, you're very welcome. Thank you. This is Tim Bradner with Legislative Digest, and thanks for joining us on Capitol Views. Thank you.